Welcome, everybody. I'm John Boylan, President and CEO for the Dulles Regional Chamber of Commerce. Real excited today to have our discussion about retail. How do we do retail along the Silver Line? And so, of course, it's Metro Monday. It's one of our favorite times, one of our great events that we hold the last Monday of each month. And a special day today because we have the Mayor Merkel from Herndon, who's going to spend 8 years and will be our last Metro Monday. And just a little trivia, she was here for our first Metro Monday. So very excited to be able to share that and wish her the best. More importantly, what Metro Monday is, it brings together the community. Our three pillars of commerce, community, communication are really evident when we see what we do with this Metro Monday, trying to plan, anticipate how you can help your business, look at the future trends and what we're going to do. And I tell you, I couldn't be happier and more honored to have Georgia Graves as the chair for this committee. And I'd like to now turn it over to Georgia. Georgia?
Thank you very much. I would very much appreciate the opportunity to thank our committee members, because without them, we wouldn't have a Metro Monday. They work hard behind the scenes to make each one of these a tremendous success, and their expertise and their involvement in community to bring the right people to the forefront to let us know what's happening and to advise us is very, very needed. So to begin with, I'd like to thank the Honorable Scott York, the Executive Director of the Committee for Dulles and the President of York Consulting and the former Chairman of the Board of the Loudoun Board of Supervisors, Dusty Smith, the Outreach and Communications Person from Capitol Rail Constructors, Chris Hunter, Business Retention Manager from the Loudoun County Economic Development Department, Joe Ritchie, Executive Vice President of Occupy Solutions Transwestern, and both John and myself. And I'd like to now recognize Dennis Holsty, who will be our moderator today. He's the Economic Development Manager of the town of Herndon and on our committee. I'd like to also thank our sponsors, Fairfax Public Access, Channel 10, and Jerry Ferguson, Eldon Street Financial, Main Street Bank, Loudoun County Economic Development Department, Northwestern Federal Credit Union, and Thompson Greenspun. Turning it over now to Dennis Holsty, our moderator.
Thank you, Georgia, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We have an exciting lineup of 5 speakers who will be presenting different ideas and topics related to the future of retail along the Silver Line. Our first speaker I'd like to introduce is Mayor Lisa Merkel. Mayor Merkel began serving the town of Herndon in 2010 as vice mayor. In 2012, she was elected mayor and has served as mayor for the town for nearly 4 terms or 8 years. Now I'm going to turn over to Mayor Merkel.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Thank you to everybody for being here. I'm charged with kicking us off talking about the future of retail, and what a time to be talking about retail. Most of you, you're here because you know Herndon, but I do have to just tell you a little bit about us, just to make sure you know what we're dealing with the town of Herndon. We are 4.2 square miles. We look at the Herndon station as our future, and of course everyone loves our downtown, which is our heart of our town and definitely symbolizes our history. We are, like I said, we're 4.2 square miles, so we're a pretty small jurisdiction with 24,000 people. And I always like to say it's possible to walk to any of your neighbors or any of your businesses that you would like to go to, and we're working to try and make that an easier task for the people who live and work here. We have a plan for our South Eldon Street area, which is kind of from downtown toward Worldgate. Right now is a lot of strip centers and gas stations and things like that, and over the coming or the next couple of decades, I think that will start to transform more into some mixed use opportunities and a more walkable, pleasant walking experience, because we would really like to make it easy for everyone to get out of their cars and onto their feet or their bicycles to get to our metro station. I've got a few slides here that Dennis is going to be my Vanna, I think, just to sort of show you our metro area, what's currently there and what is slated to come online. And then I'll talk a little bit more about just what we're thinking about for retail options in the town. So Dennis, are you sharing those for me?
No, John will be.
Oh, John is. I'm sorry. I just know it's not me. All right.
And John, yeah.
So while we're getting that first slide up, our metro station is, of course, the first town that you will come to from or if you get off the train at Dulles Airport. Our transit-oriented core is about 38 acres, and currently it is built out completely with legacy office buildings with large parking lots and kind of 80s office park style buildings. We have rezoned that area for transit-oriented development. That happened several years ago. We are looking for it to become a more densely, more dense development, and it's planned for mixed-use residential office and the accessory retail that would go with those uses. Of course, the office market was changing even before COVID, and once COVID has hit, we aren't sure where that's going. I'm sure people who are more versed in that will maybe be speaking on that later today or at another Metro Monday. But we have been faced with, in our redevelopment project here, with the challenge of somewhat outdated office buildings when you think about them in conjunction with a metro station. So timeline could change some of our timelines, and I don't think Herndon is alone in this, and our interim plans may look a little bit different while the market sorts itself out. But recently the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors had released an article, and I think they may have had a webinar about it as well, but they sort of changed the verbiage from the challenge of outdated office buildings to the opportunity of potentially obsolete buildings. And I really like this phrase. I had not heard this particular one before, but people who are shopping, we're kind of going from bricks to clicks. People are shopping online, they already were, and once COVID hit, you know, everybody was trying to do the curbside pickup or the delivery, particularly for groceries and things like that that people hadn't necessarily looked to shop for in that manner before. They suspect that we made a leap in online grocery shopping in a matter of a couple of months that may have taken a decade under normal circumstances for as many people to go from their weekly or every other day trip to the Harris Teeter or the Giant to now ordering online from Amazon Fresh or from one of our local retailers. So what we're seeing and what we think is going to happen going forward is retail is likely to have less merchandising and floor space for shopping and more backroom kind of footprint for the inventory that will be then delivered or picked up curbside and that sort of thing. So the future of grocery stores and I think our big box retailers is going to be pretty interesting. I think there was a statistic, let me see, because I'm not as good at numbers without looking. Since 2017 in the country, 13.8 million square feet of retail has been converted to flex space and fulfillment centers, which is about the equivalent of 35 regional suburban malls, which is pretty substantial when you think about it. Urban Land Use Institute had a Washington Retail Roundtable this summer in July. And they talked a lot about what I just mentioned, the changing shopping habits, and also that restaurants are becoming more and more often the anchor for retail centers rather than a big box store, which is what we have more typically seen. Lots of reasons for that. Some is the change in shopping habits, but also food. It invites social engagement. It invites visitors to come to your area. It creates the identity of a neighborhood. Draws in the office crowds for lunch. In Herndon, we definitely know that. That's one of our biggest meals tax gets is during the lunchtime crowd. That has waned a little bit during COVID since not as many people are coming into our office building. So it's been an interesting balance. But it's also, when you have a restaurant and you have people coming in and people on the streets, it's a force of vibrancy in that neighborhood, in that area. And the town of Herndon knows this well. We have over 100 restaurants in our 4.2 square miles. And really part of living and working in Herndon, I think, is that sense of community in every way, but it's not lost on us that our restaurants really fuel a lot of that vibrancy and activity. So the interesting thing is COVID has forced where we have, especially near metro stations, which is why we're here today, we have really talked and planned for a lot of density to create the kind of community that you look for in these areas, but also to be a hub around the mass transit. COVID has forced people to kind of start to value distancing more than and in ways we've never thought of prior to the virus, rather than density. So kind of throws a wrench in some of the things that we've been talking and planning for a long time. So it's really important moving forward to make sure, creative thinking, collaboration, communication, and flexibility between all the stakeholders that are involved in our retail circuit. And that's a lot of people. It's lenders, it's equity partners, the owners of the business, landlords, tenants, the municipalities. You'd think after 8 years I could say that word better by now. Municipalities, small governments, and then those agencies that support them, like during COVID, the ABC board has been probably the most flexible and progressive government agency that we have worked with, because they saw immediately the negative impact that COVID was having on some of our restaurants, realized that the profit margin for a lot of these places, especially small places, was their liquor license and being able to still sell that along with their food to go. So as a small municipality, I think Herndon can be nimble. We've worked on being nimble all this time to try, and we have an opportunity to get to know not only the people who live here, but of course the business owners who work here, and some of them live here too. And we'd like to try and provide a personal kind of concierge service when we can. Dennis has done a remarkable job since he's been here the past several years, just to have the right person to contact as a business owner when you have a concern or a question. And one of the ways we were able to be nimble was when we started opening up, I believe phase one, when we started reopening, and there were some new regulations lifted to allow outdoor dining in parking lots and other areas. Our town staff was so on top of it and reaching out to our restaurants that we were able to open on the very first day 26 outdoor seating spots or seating arrangements for restaurants within the town. And we are not a large staff, so kudos to Dennis and to it's not just Dennis, I know, but lots of people who made that happen. I'm going to wrap up because we have a lot of speakers that probably are much, much better at talking about the future of retail in detail than I am, but I love to talk about Herndon. It's a small town with a worldview, and what we are trying to do in everything that we see ourselves as customer service agents to the people who live and work here. And especially in a time like COVID, when things have been so uncertain, we've tried to be a place of certainty when we can. We're always searching for how can we say yes, which, John, that was why it was so hard to not be able to say yes to Friday Night Live. I think that's probably one of the just worst things I've ever had to say in the 8 years that I've been doing this job. But when there's a way to say yes and make it safe and effective and work for everybody involved, we are trying to do that for our businesses and people who live here. And I think it's that mentality, forward-thinking leadership, our incredible professional staff that we are going to continue to serve well and keep Herndon as an economic driver in the region, as well as everybody's favorite hometown. So I thank you for having me here, and I'm anxious to see what questions people have and learn more about the future of retail from my colleagues here on the panel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate it. I know you didn't say yes to Friday Night Live, but by not saying yes, we had to come up with ways of saying yes. And we did it virtually. So in fact, we had even more people watch online from ArtSpace. So we had over 2,600 people every Friday night. So we got more people involved. The number of times it rained, we wouldn't have been able to have it. So we got the bands to play. And it really was a great testament to mental health, to let people relax and enjoy. And oftentimes they came together as a family. We had a number of people tell us that instead of everybody watching things differently on their own TVs or iPads, they came together and enjoyed it. So it really was a silver lining to not being able to be out there.
Silver
Dennis,
lining, no pun intended. And I just realized I didn't even talk about my slides. Do you want me to tell you what's on my slides?
You want to do that, or Dennis, whatever you want to do. We'll just flip through them.
Well, we just flip through them. But what you're seeing right now is what's there today. I got excited about obsolete office buildings and what we're going to try to do. The next slide is 555 Herndon Parkway. This has been approved by the town council. It's Penzance, and you can read the numbers there. That's what we have approved as of I'm trying to remember when this came before the council, several months ago, pre-COVID for sure. So of course, the market may drive some slight changes, but this is what you can expect to see among the Herndon Parkway. We have the next slide is a proposal for 593 Herndon Parkway, which is the property owned by Lerner. very similar kind of situation. And the Lerner property is adjacent to what will be the plaza that comes from the metro platform down into this development and out toward the Herndon Parkway. And we are currently reviewing a special exception proposal on the next slide for Fairbrook. This is the quadrangle owned property. It's actually outside of that 38 acres, but just barely. It is as you can see, there is some green space component that's already there. So that makes it a little bit more simple because it's not completely built out. They've also agreed to build and fund a Fairbrook Drive extension, so try and alleviate some of the traffic that will be, created by this project when it comes online. But those are the projects that were kind of in the pipeline for right now. And there's where you can find me.
Not for long.
LisaMerkel@gmail.com. I'm really easy to find after January 1st.
Thank you. Georgia.
Well, Dennis and I would like to ask you and John if you could open a gift that you have with you. Do you have something in with you?
I do, and if I can lift it, I want to show you. The clerk's office wrote in giant letters, "Do not open until Dennis says you can." So, am I allowed, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I was not expecting this either. So you can tell I'm not lying. I really didn't open it. Ah, there we go. All right. Aww. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, go ahead.
Well, if I may, for everyone that's attending today, it says the Dulles Regional Chamber to Lisa Merkel, Mayor of the Town of Herndon, in deepest appreciation for your tireless efforts to bring the Silver Line to the Dulles region, September the 28th, 2020. I wish everybody would clap as loud as you could in appreciation. Thank you so much, Lisa, for everything you've done.
You guys, thank you so much. This is awesome. I was not expecting this, and I certainly have put in a lot of time, but I have not been alone. There have been council members and staff members in the chamber, and there are just countless people that are working hard to make this happen. And so I'm just honored to be a part of it, and it's been my honor to serve as the mayor, and I'm really going to miss it. So thank you for being our partner all along and going forward.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Dennis because he may have a few words that he wishes to share as well.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for all your service. We do appreciate it. I've enjoyed working with you for the past 7.5 years with the town in economic development. So it's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Creating the position that you eventually took was one of the first things we did when we got on council back in the day. Started working more closely with the chamber. So it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent. So we're going to move on to our next speaker. Our second speaker is Rebecca Maldry. She's the Director of Economic Initiatives for Fairfax County. Her department has overseen the Fairfax RISE program and is involved in working closely with small businesses throughout Fairfax County. Rebecca?
Thanks so much, Dennis. Nice to be here, and congratulations, Mayor. That's very nice. It's amazing what we can do virtually, right? You can accept awards, and you can. So it's really nice to continue to do those things. So first, I just want to give a brief introduction to the Department of Economic Initiatives because it is a new department. It was created last year to really focus on the county's efforts at the local level and coordinate local economic development initiatives. I'm often asked how we are associated or connected to the EDA, the Economic Development Authority, which is a good question. So we partner very, very closely with the EDA. I think some of my EDA colleagues are even on the line today, so hello. And we particularly work together on business development activities. And as Dennis mentioned, one of the areas that our department is increasingly focused on is supporting the small and local business ecosystem. So I just want to talk about that a little bit because, of course, our focus since March has been on the crisis at hand and what we can do to keep the economy afloat. So we immediately turned our attention to the sectors that had been hit the hardest due to restrictions and closures, including the retail sector. And in April, we launched a 2.5 million microloan program. And then in May, the Board of Supervisors authorized the RISE grant program, which is the Relief Initiative to Support Employers, RISE, which has up to $58 million allocated thanks to the Board of Supervisors. And I must say thanks to the leadership of Supervisor Faust. You can check out the grants that have been awarded through our dashboard. And I want to just quickly throw up a screenshot of that. Let me see if I can share my screen. Just to show a little bit about kind of what we're talking about in the scope of the program. So this is data from September 5th, so earlier this month, which shows about 3,800 grants awarded. That number will be going up, and we'll likely have an updated dashboard later this week. And you can see that grants are really dispersed throughout the county. And of course, right along the silver line, if you can imagine the silver line kind of going across the top there, where we have a lot of our commerce clusters in the county. We asked recipients to self-select their business category. And let me see if I can go to the next slide. So you can see on this slide, I realize the print is a little bit small, but we have awarded to date 314 businesses that identified in the retail trade category and another 530 grants to businesses in accommodation and food services. So that totals about 22% of the grants. And you can see that many of the businesses selected other services, which could also potentially include other types of retail businesses. Also in April, we really did our best to get the word out to businesses in Fairfax County about existing programs. This was important because so many businesses, particularly small businesses, minority and women-owned businesses, often do not know about or are not connected to financing opportunities. So we mailed postcards to every single business in Fairfax County. 2 times we did that actually. So they would know about not only the local programs, but also the federal programs that were available, in the previous months. We worked with Chairman McKay to actually do a phone call to businesses as well. We translated the text into the top 4 languages spoken. We really felt that outreach was one of the most important components that we could do to make sure that businesses knew in this very difficult time, any resource that they may be able to access. And those connections were largely successful. So not only did we have high participation in the RISE program, but also more than 21,000 businesses in Fairfax received PPP loans, which is a pretty good number. So those are federal dollars that flow directly into our local businesses. I just want to mention a couple of other things that were done and a couple of updates as well. So in early April, also the county's site and building permit and inspection services moved to electronic submissions as well as virtual building inspections. In May, the Board of Supervisors adopted an emergency ordinance to temporarily permit outdoor dining and fitness activities, and the county is now working on an updated ordinance to address the fact that the outdoor tents, which have seen a lot of, I think, increasing patronage, those tents will likely be closed for winter. So that ordinance is being updated, and I believe it will come in front of the board later in October. And also just this weekend, the Fairfax Fire and EMS posted guidance on their website about tent usage during the cold weather. So if there's any folks out there that have a business and you are using a tent, I encourage you to check out their website, fairfaxcounty.gov/fire-EMS, and you can go to that updated guidance. And we'll probably be posting that out as well. So we know, of course, that the impacts of the pandemic, and I know we're talking about retail today, but we're so focused on the crisis at hand that I'm kind of working my way into that because the pandemic has particularly impacted the retail sector, as well as food services, accommodations, hospitality, travel. And we know that this pandemic will shape businesses and places, how people move, how people work now. But also some of those changes will have long-term impacts. And we're trying to wrap our arms around what that could look like. So we recently launched the Economic Recovery Framework, which is a consultant-led project. And what we're hoping for is to identify some strategies to really understand and confront these economic shifts and be as competitive as possible to perhaps take advantage of opportunities that may arise or address issues that exist. So our consultant, which is the planning and economic development firm HRNA, they're currently holding roundtable discussions to gather input on challenges, on needs, on opportunities, and they're conducting analysis and undertaking impact scenarios. And so we look forward to that report with more information on strategies that we may undertake that should be coming out later this winter. So that's our current task at hand. But of course, the larger work of transitioning and supporting our communities and economies into places that people want to live, work, and play continues. And retail is, of course, a very crucial component of that. That's one of the reasons why I'm very focused on small businesses, because those small businesses, the retailers and the restaurants, like some of the folks that we're going to be hearing from today, are what fill our storefronts. They give us unique experiences. They help us create special places. They provide us what we need in a convenient way. And I don't think that will change. And I would say that the developments that have just surged along the Silver Line are a real testament to the fact that more people want to live in transit accessible communities with a walkable lifestyle, that you can walk to recreation, services, to shopping, to friends. That may shift somewhat, I think, in the short term, but I really believe that this larger trend of transit-oriented development, more urban environments will not dramatically alter. And we know that retail follows rooftops. So the amount of residential development planned and coming up or already here along the Silver Line really indicates a significant amount of retail coming as well. And we also know that jobs follow people. So there's often a kind of a philosophical dilemma. Do people follow jobs or do jobs follow people? Well, all the data at the end of the day indicates that really the jobs, the employers go where the people is, and that is more and more evident as that we are in a talent shortage. So we know that employers are really looking for where the talent is. And one of the good things is that we have a lot of it right here. And a lot of it is located in communities right along the Silver Line. And that's, I think, indicated by some of the really significant business announcements that have came in the last year, right there along the transit line. So at Wheelie Station, of course, I think all know that Google announced 100,000 square foot expansion last year. And New Star, a 96,000 square foot headquarters relocation to the Reston station. At Reston Town Center, Microsoft just earlier this year announced a 400,000 square foot expansion, and Facebook is going to place a 75,000 square foot office. And at Innovation Center South, Amazon Web Services announced a 270,000 square foot expansion. So this growth is certainly driven by development along the Silver Line. And I think that what we've seen at the Wheelie Reston station is a really good case study. So that station is open, it's active. I would say there's been really positive growth in terms of residential units and leasing. There is 250,000 square feet of retail planned there, with several leases signed. And I also want to, there's a nice picture of Preston Station. And I also want to focus a little bit on how we can support that and how our FCDOT is supporting this development, this transit-oriented development through some expanded services. So if you haven't seen this, there is a proposed Reston Herndon bus plan, which will significantly increase bus service at all the sites, all the stops, Wheelie, Reston Town Center, Herndon Innovation Center, as well as Dulles Airport. So this will significantly increase the abilities of communities to access transit, as well as people to access jobs. So this is certainly positive from a transit-oriented development standpoint, and of course provides more opportunities to grow retail and really capture the people that will be coming in and out of these places every single day. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. The question is, of course, how will the pandemic impact this momentum in terms of large developments along the Silver Line? And the retail establishments that are in place now, and many of those that are, have signed leases that we are expecting to come, or that may have, be on their way to signing leases and coming into new developments. Well, I think that Mayor Merkel actually mentioned that many of the trends that we have been seeing have just been good. So I really like that term. We've gone from bricks to clicks. That is certainly the case. It's true that in terms of retail, I think that at this very moment, small stores are in a very challenging position. There's been some consolidation around larger stores really being able to take advantage of the rise of online and delivery-oriented retail. So that has just been exacerbated. But there's of course been a lot of innovation. And I think that people, one of the great things about a dense walkable community, maybe like Herndon, is that people feel some loyalty to their community, and they really begin to access their local shops and their local stores. I've certainly seen that, and I think that that's a trend that that will grow and will continue. Another kind of trend that had been occurring, and I think has been accelerated in terms of retail, is those big boxes that were in trouble before the pandemic are continuing to face trouble. Those are spaces that may need to be transformed. There's a lot of innovation that can happen about what to do with maybe vacated larger big box stores, and how that can be incorporated more into maybe a more urban or walkable environment. But one of the things that we've also seen during this pandemic is how, I'd say, essential bars and restaurants are to social life. How much we need places to safely come together. And I really predict that the experiences of local, unique retail, personal care services, food, bars, and entertainment will endure and will be a mainstay of vibrant communities, and really offer opportunities to kind of continue development and anchor places and anchor the developments that are planned along the Silver Line. So what will happen with these developments? There's so much going on. I try every day to wrap my hands around it, and I hope that others will kind of lay out some of the many developments that are occurring or in the planning stages. It's tremendous. I think that those will continue. We can adapt. We can refocus. We can potentially design our way out of this to create safe places that doesn't have to mean, sprawl. We can create places that are safe and that continue to provide those kind of urban, vibrant, walkable lifestyles that many people are looking for, and that these transit stations really can offer. So please feel free to email me if you'd like to stay, follow the progress of our economic recovery strategy or weigh in. Feel free to email me. You can also go to our website. We'll be posting updates there, which is fairfaxcounty.gov/economic success. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your presentation. Our next speaker is Alex Coma. He's the Economic Development Reporter for the Washington Business Journal. Previously, he was the Managing Editor of ARL Now. I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
Hi, well, thank you so much, Dennis, and all of the good folks at the Dulles Chamber for having me. As he said, I am the economic development reporter at the Business Journal, and what that means is that we are keeping as close a possible eye on exactly the sort of trends that Rebecca just discussed, and as we can, both pre and post pandemic. So what I'm going to try and do is simply walk you through what we've been hearing from developers, brokers, small business owners, because Lord knows I don't necessarily know all of this stuff, but I rely on the expertise of others. And as a Fairfax County native myself, growing up in the Reston area, I'm quite invested in all of this stuff, right alongside all of you, watching the areas how little Reston has changed in particular since I started going to school in FCPS. So without further ado, I will share my presentation with you. Okay, so it goes without saying, I think, that this was a strong market on the Silver Line corridor for retail before coronavirus. I mean, one needs only look at some of the big developments coming online in the Reston area in particular. Specifically, take a look at Brookfield's Halley Rise, JBG Smith's RTC West. These are areas right around that future Reston Town Center Metro stop that, even without the Silver Line coming online, even with continued uncertainty about when it will come online, these are developments that are still seeing a lot of retail activity, and specifically a lot of retail activity from major tenants. I mean, they were able to get Wegmans to come out to Halley Rise. They were able to convince a variety of restaurants, from Cooper's Hawk as one particular pretty notable new tenant over at RTC West. And Loudoun County, I think, experienced a lot of the same success. I mean, Loudoun County may not have the metro quite yet, in a way that Reston and Fairfax County can count on, with already having the experience that Rebecca alluded to at Wheelie, Reston East. But they, of course, have success stories as well. One needs to only look at Comstock's Loudoun Station, which has managed to land anchor tenants from AMC to a Blackfin restaurant. And that is now, last I looked, pretty nearly well leased up retail-wise, but for a few vacancies. Peterson Company's Commonwealth Center is another example of success. I'm sure you've seen the Top Golf and the iFly from the toll road at the very least, to show that retailers, specifically large retailers, have been quite interested in these properties along the Silver Line. But then, of course, COVID comes along and we start wondering, what is going to come next? What are the sorts of shopping centers, sorts of retail developments that are still going to succeed in luring in tenants? I mean, especially in a time when so many of these restaurants have been, in particular, forced to reduce capacity, change their business models overnight. And in general, while there are exceptions, what we've heard from developers along the Silver Line is that a key often seems to be that if you were doing well before the pandemic, obviously you're going to take a hit, but fundamentally, you are still going to succeed if you can sort of show successfully that you have already created a vibrant retail environment. The phrase that gets used a lot in my conversations is co-tenancy. Essentially, that if you can show that this has been a popular, successful hub, getting a lot of foot traffic before the pandemic, you're probably going to have a pretty easy time convincing those retailers that are still in expansion mode to come there after the pandemic. Of course, that really depends on, what kind of, development that you're looking for in many cases. But, take a look, for example, at something like Reston Town Center, which has been around and been an enduring part of Reston for so long now, and it is slowly becoming transit-oriented development with Reston Town Center Metro coming online at some point in the future. You know, even with all of their very well publicized, you know, problems figuring out how to make a paid parking arrangement there work as Metro comes in, they've still regularly been recording occupancy rates for retail in the high 90s. When we last wrote a story about them last year, they were at 95% vacancy or occupancy rate for retail. And that's, I mean, that's, you know, a very strong environment that is going to be attractive to retailers who may well be on the fence about expanding unless a developer can make a pitch about a great place that they could be bound for. And you know, another example of this is a development that I've already mentioned as well. You know, developments that are around the Silver Line and both in the immediate transit corridor and sort of adjacent to it, like RPAI's One Loudoun. You know, that is another example of a development that has been around for a long time now. In my recent conversations with RPAI, they've had success speaking with retailers, even given all of the uncertainty in the pandemic right now. But of course, really the question is, you know, what kind of retailers are going to be the ones that are still going to be looking for space? Which are the ones that are still going to be interested in making that leap and taking up more space, an expense that, you know, they don't necessarily need right now in the midst of the global pandemic. So the question that developers, I think, are largely asking is, you know, who can we reasonably still be pursuing? And I think one of the, perhaps, you know, it might feel like a no-duh moment, but grocery stores have been doing quite well throughout the pandemic. And as I think it was Rebecca that alluded to, you know, perhaps we are not seeing the sort of large scale taking up an entire section of a suburban retail development, you know, grocer that we have in the past. We've very much still been seeing grocers expand, you know, their interest in the DC area. And that includes what you see pictured in this photo right here, which as far as we can tell, excuse me, is about to become an Amazon grocery store in Fairfax County. You know, this is something that it's not, you know, Whole Foods, although of course Amazon owns Whole Foods. This is one of the most successful companies in the entire world making a new push into grocery service, and they're making a new push into grocery service right here in the DC region. We've been able to identify two future Amazon grocery concepts. We don't quite know what they're going to look like yet. One in Fairfax City, one in Fairfax County, and a third in Chevy Chase. You know, sort of proving that this is a company that has a lot of capital to work with, and they see the value of grocery as being so important that they are, you know, they've already acquired Whole Foods. That's something that's doing quite well for them, I'm sure, as anyone who's been to a Whole Foods recently can attest, but is also something that they're interested in pushing into a new direction. And everything that I've heard in my conversations with property managers and developers has suggested that that has very much continued and only strengthened during coronavirus, simply for the fact that everyone needs groceries. Look at another example with Shoppers. You know, this is a chain that had been starting to think about getting out of the grocery business in the DC area. They had started selling a lot of their stores, many of which are in Fairfax County, not necessarily on the Silver Line necessarily in all cases, but often, you know, in many of the same areas we're talking about. Now, in many cases, we're hearing from people with Shoppers in their property saying, you know, perhaps they've put a hold on sale, seeing that things have been so successful with everybody, you know, you're not able to go out quite as frequently, you're at home more, perhaps you're learning how to cook a pizza or some bread or the rest, and you need grocery. And that type of retail has really continued to thrive. And then, you know, to a smaller extent, we've heard that quick service restaurants, you know, ones where people aren't necessarily sitting down and, you know, really spending a lot of time, especially indoors, those have not been as, you know, prevalent. We've even heard, you know, furniture stores have been doing fairly well. However, I think this ties into a trend that we have seen some, which is perhaps there isn't a ton of traffic in a store, someone coming in and saying, yes, I'm going to buy that couch from you sight unseen. But because people have been increasingly relying on online shopping during the pandemic, but starting to feel confident venturing out. We have heard that some, folks leasing space have heard from stores who say, we want an online show or a showroom for our online sales as much as anything else. As people feel comfortable, they'll come in and take a look at what could be a big purchase, even if they know that at some point they're going to end up buying something online. That's not a trade-off that every business can make, especially smaller ones, but it is one that especially perhaps some of these more established businesses can. Now, the question is really, as I think we've heard discussed some today, the interplay between residential and retail, because of course, Metro is a fantastic magnet for new residential construction. And often that does indeed come with retail construction. I mean, I think, how many examples have we seen in these various developments that I've discussed, and the ones that you can think of are along, coming Metro lines that have, retail beneath residential. But I guess the thing that we're really going to be watching, and certainly what I'm interested to hear from all of you after this is done, is how much that trend continues, how much necessarily developers are going to be interested in putting a small amount of retail under a large residential project. And that is something that we are going to be watching very closely all over the region, but especially I think in Loudoun. Certainly Fairfax County has started to see a lot of large new residential construction near metro stations that are about to come online. Loudoun is experiencing much of that right now. However, as you might expect, a little bit on a slightly delayed timeline because this is all still new to the county. Any of you in Loudoun, I'm sure, are familiar with the county's recent rewrite of their comprehensive plan. It was a long and difficult process, but that is the chief land use document and the one that is going to guide the county's growth. They've said very clearly, we want to see a lot more residential near our, metro stations. And that is a shift that may be, difficult for the county to possibly pull off. But to the extent that they can with some of these developments, for instance, One Loudoun, which I already discussed, Commonwealth Center as well. These are developers saying, we want a lot more residential, or perhaps, even just a little more residential, depending on the case, because we see that as really the viable way to support these developments. That may come at the expense of office space. It may come at the expense of retail in particular. I mean, consider that somewhere like Commonwealth Center, a Peterson property that has, a big Topgolf, the iFly skydiving center, they were really looking for these experiential tenants. That may not be as viable in a post-COVID era. And I think that candidly, they're trying to figure out how that's going to work, as are we all. But as I said, fundamentally, I am here only reflecting what I hear from all of you. And so please don't hesitate to screenshot this and reach out to me on these channels at any time, because I want to hear from you about what the rest of you all are seeing, so that I can be considerably more informed the next time I do one of these presentations. And I welcome your questions once this is all done. And I'm very glad that you had a few minutes for me today.
Great, thank you, Alex. We're going to move on to our next speaker. Our fourth speaker is Tony Stafford. He's owner of Ford's Fish Shack, which has 3 locations located in Loudoun County. In the spring, Tony was called to the White House to speak about the impact of COVID-19 on the businesses throughout the region. Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Dennis, and thank you for allowing me to come and speak for a few minutes and represent Loudoun County and talk a little bit about Loudoun County and what COVID has done for us. I speak for my restaurants. All 3 restaurants are in Loudoun County, and we have been hit really hard. In March, we were taken down, pretty much to our knees, just like all restaurants, all food service, when we were told by the governor that basically we had to shut our dining rooms down and go to just delivery or carry out only. So that was a big challenge, and restaurants really had to learn to pivot and change. And you saw restaurants selling everything in their grocery, turning their restaurants into grocery stores and selling bottles of ketchup and selling uncooked meat products and selling rolls of toilet paper and, doing delivery and doing a lot of things that they never thought they would do in order to survive. And a lot of restaurants had to, open up ghost kitchens and do a lot of things they never thought they would do, and we were one of them. And restaurants have a lot of them have had to kind of reinvent themselves and learn this new reality that we have. And I think we're learning. One of the big changes that we've seen, and I was telling Georgia this the other day, is the loss of lunch business. We're not seeing a lot of people go to work now. They're not going to their offices, which is what we're all seeing. They're working from home. They're homeschooling. They're helping their kids with their virtual schooling. So they're not having their lunch meetings. So the lunch business is off by 40, 50, 60%. So we've lost a lot of that lunch business. So we're trying to figure out ways to get that lunch business back. So when the Metro, the Silver Line does, get back to capacity or get some capacity, how can we get some of those ridership? How do we get some of that? Do we create open air areas for the ridership to be able to spread out and enjoy some boxed lunches or boxed meals, before and after they're riding the Silver Line? Is kind of grab and go going to be a big part of lunch period or it's always been a part of the commuter piece, but it's going to be a bigger part. Is open air markets going to be a big part of casual theme restaurants? I envision going forward. I was telling someone the other day, I was in Disney World a few years ago and I saw a food truck, which was interesting. It was a food truck, but it had a wrap that could literally be changed daily. So one day it could be a seafood themed restaurant. The next day it could be a burger themed restaurant. And next day it could be a taco themed restaurant. So you had a food truck that was literally permanently mounted, but it could change its concept daily. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. You're going to see more and more developers helping smaller independent restaurants with their build outs, because restaurants are expensive to build. The cash contribution to build out restaurants, I don't think you're going to see larger restaurants being built. People are going to build smaller restaurants with maybe communal kind of open areas where 2 or 3 restaurants can share a communal kind of patio or open air area, because people are scared to go back into restaurants right now and eat indoors. People are still eating outdoors. People are still eating outdoors on patios. One of the big things this time last year, our takeout business was 7% of our total sales. It's approximately 43% of our total business now. So you're seeing that casual theme restaurants have now pivoted, and a big part of their business is takeout business. So someone said earlier, bricks are now clicks, and it's the same thing for full service restaurants. People are comfortable ordering off of a computer screen. They're comfortable ordering their seafood meals off of computer screens. No longer are they comfortable just ordering their pizzas or their fast food restaurant meals off their Uber apps or their DoorDash apps. They're comfortable ordering their $30 lobster dinners off of their computer screens also. So you're going to see a big shift in that. So you're going to see technology take over in full service restaurants also. But I think you're going to see a lot of changes in the hospitality restaurant scene in the next 3 to 5 years. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Tony. We appreciate your time today, and thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Omar Aru. He is the owner of Escape Room Herndon, which is located at 406 Eldon Street. His escape room was recently named and awarded by TripAdvisors as a Traveler's Choice Award in the Fun and Games category. Omar?
All right. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dallas Chamber, for having me. What I figured I'd do is give you all a little bit of background very quickly on what an escape room is, since not everybody knows what that is, and then go into a little bit about what our customers look like prior to COVID, what it looks like now, and what I anticipate that's going to look like in the future, and how that relates to Silverline, and how I think those customers are going to be affected by the addition of the Silverline. So very briefly, what an escape room is, you and your group go into a room to play a game. It's an immersive room that's designed either like anything from a pirate ship to a laboratory to a haunted house. And in that room, you solve riddles, puzzles, and tasks and try to escape before time runs out. It's a great way to get together and kind of play a game with your friends, family, whatever it might be, colleagues. We've seen a lot of people use it for teamwork as well as team building events. So we've had a lot of corporate clients in the past, everything from the big IT companies that you guys might be familiar with to everything to like a dentist office where they're just trying to get a day out and do something fun together. Playing inside of these games, what you're doing is as you're solving puzzles, it's kind of like pulling on the thread of a sweater. More things become revealed to you. You venture in through a story and then ultimately try to escape or solve a mystery or whatever it might be, uncover a treasure. I think the value that these have is that specifically now, these days, is a break from screens. So you get to go in with your friends and do this tactile event where you're not staring at a screen, you're all sharing this space together, you're playing a game, and you're communicating and working together to solve this. In the past, what our customers were like were mostly groups or sometimes strangers who would all book the same time, kind of like how you book a movie theater. You all go and you share shared experience with all those people at the same time. Sometimes it'd be strangers, sometimes it's just two groups of people meeting together. Currently, in the environment that we have today, we can't really do that anymore because we have to have a distance between people who don't know each other, and it makes it a lot more comfortable for them within that game. So we have private-only games. So this is where anyone from 2 people to 8 people would book a room, and they would have it to themselves. They're no longer sharing the experience, so they're going to have it without people they're not comfortable with. And I think that's kind of where the trend for a lot of entertainment is going as well. People are looking for experiences that they can do with people they know and not so much share in a common space with strangers who they're not comfortable with, who they might be uneasy with, whatever it might be. Some of the precautions that we've taken here include requiring people to wear masks throughout the experience, changing the way that we clean. In the past, we used to have a 15-minute gap in between rooms, which meant that once your group was done in a room, our team would go in there and we would reset everything and put it back to exactly the way it was so that the next group goes in and they play the exact same experience. Our team could get it done within 15 minutes pretty easily. These days, we've stretched that out to anywhere from 30 minutes on the weekend to an hour during the week. What that does is it gives our team time to thoroughly clean out the room. As we learn more things about COVID, I think people are getting a better understanding of what kind of cleaning is required, but it's better to be safe than not. So we take our time, let a room breathe out, and also give them a chance the team to get in there and thoroughly clean everything with all kinds of disinfectants, which are incredibly hard to find, but we found a way to do so along the way. I think this also gives a sense of comfort to the people that are going to be playing it. What this means to entertainment for ourselves is with the changes that have happened, we now have fewer people playing in a game and fewer experience per day because you're no longer mixing groups. You're no longer putting strangers together in a room to play together. It is strictly limited to the people who make the initial booking. Also, it means that we are getting fewer games in because we need to space them out longer to clean those areas and make sure they're safe for the people that are going to be playing it next. I think that probably resonates a lot with other entertainment places where and food as well, like Tony's, where you have to space them out. You can't have everyone into your facility the way you might have in the past. And a lot of our businesses are kind of designed in a way where we operate best at high capacity. The more people we have in there, the more people we're able to employ, the more people we're able to put through the rooms, and the more people are able to play. So that's definitely hurt our bottom line, as well as, obviously the general uneasiness of going out of the house these days. What I think perhaps the future is going to look like, and kind of a lot of what is happening today, is more of kind of what we're terming kind of like COVID pods. So everyone has I'm sure everyone in this channel right now also has a group of people that they're comfortable with, whether it's families, whether it's close friends, whether it's people that you've spent a lot of time with during this pandemic where you said, okay, the precautions you are taking are very similar to the precautions we're taking. I feel very comfortable in what you're doing with what we're doing, so we can also share in activities together, whether it's people you're going to the bars with, people you're going to restaurants with, people's houses you're going over to. This is essentially your pod or bubble. I think these groups are also looking for key entertainments. So can't really do movie theaters as much now, so people are going to drive-in theaters, but you might be going with your group. Can't really go into malls anymore, but you can still shop together, either like buying those group settings where you have somebody come over to somebody's house and everyone shares in whatever they're selling, things like that. We've seen a lot of pods come in. So it's either families or groups of kids who've all vetted each other and are willing to go ahead and do activities together. In a shopping center like ours, like Rebecca said, local vibrant communities, I think we're seeing that people are coming together to go to a restaurant together and then do something fun together as an entertainment, and not really mixing in with people that they don't know. We don't see so many singles coming in who are just coming to meet people. And I think that's going to be pretty common for quite some time, where people are getting comfortable with the situation it is. What that means with the Silver Line, I think it gives us an opportunity to bring people from outside. So it's a lot easier for people to get here, say from DC as a pod, to come out here and make a activity out of the area. You know, you want to go to the restaurants that are close by, do some entertainment, go sightseeing, maybe do a little bit of shopping, and you do that as a pod, and then you also travel back as such. I think also the Silver Line will also bring in young professionals who will also be doing that in, who may, for instance, be working in DC, but they live out here within close proximity to the metro. So they're going to be looking for activities to do in this area in the same manner as those people who are coming in from outside. So, you know, our shopping center here, we've got a lot of things that started developing in as before COVID was taking place. We've got a signature LA Fitness that just opened up in our shopping center, a Mod Pizza, an IHOP. All these opened in the, I believe, the winter of 2019, getting ready for a big bump. But I think all of that is going to come back because people are going to want to get outside and do things outside of their homes. I think there's definitely urge for that, but they're also looking to do something safe and with people that they trust and people that they're comfortable with. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for retail in that way, as long as we're able to shift and kind of acknowledge that that's what our customers might look like going forward, not so much as a mass grouping of people. So that's kind of what I wanted to share. I hope that's informative. And again, thank you again for having me. Oh, and I did want to point out, Rebecca had mentioned the RISE grant, and those things were very valuable to small businesses like myself because it helped us kind of make that gap between uncertainty and what the new normal is today. And the Dulles Chamber and Town of Herndon have done a really good job of sharing that information so we know what's available for us out there and things that we're able to take advantage of. And we at Escape Room have done that. It's allowed us to keep a lot of our staff on and also given us some insight into what the future might look like and being able to hold on for that as well. So thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I'd love to hear it.
Great. Thank you, Omar. And thank you, all our panelists today. Now it's question and answer time. So please use the chat function and send in some questions that you might have for the panelists. Here's one that just came in. Basically, it's asking about new digital or innovative opportunities that some of the businesses have implemented. Can you talk about that? What you might have heard, either Alex or Tony or Omar, related to the COVID-19?
I can tell you from our perspective, what we did was we created digital free games to play online. It's something that we decided to do for free, and it was something I think will give families an opportunity to kind of play and do things and entertain themselves while they're stuck inside. A lot of other escape rooms have also done virtual tours of their games. We've decided not to go that route, but I think the in-person experience has a lot more value there. But some of those innovations have been out there for our entertainment area.
Yeah, I think from the restaurant side, you're going to see more online ordering and just more people using apps and digital ordering, being able to get your order texted in. You'll be able to communicate with your restaurant. Hey, I'm 5 miles out. Let me know if my order's ready. So you're not showing up and having to wait another 10 minutes. So it's almost intuitive that your order's ready instead of having to get to the restaurant and realize it's another 20-minute wait. So it's going to get a lot smarter, so to speak, that your order is going to be, you're going to be able to tell when your order's ready, and you won't even have to leave your house until you know that your order's almost ready. And there'll be a lot more being able to pick your orders up in a lot more common locations. So you won't have to maybe kind of go out of your way. So you may even be able to pick your order up at a 7-Eleven or at your child's school because it's kind of a common drop-off spot for several people to pick up. So I think you're going to see some of that.
Tony, a couple other questions that just came in for you. What's your thoughts on third-party ordering versus ordering direct? And then what are your thoughts about how should restaurants manage the outdoor dining as it gets colder?
Yeah. Both great questions. Third-party app or third-party delivery. I mean, we tried third-party delivery for a while. We tried just using their drivers and not really using their marketing. Third-party apps, people, it's funny. Younger people love to get on there, and get on the Uber apps or the DoorDash apps. They love that variation. They love that variety because they can scroll through there and see 30, 40, 100 different restaurants, where a lot of us that know what we want, we have no problem typing in the name of that restaurant and going right to their website and going to there. But a lot of people, they want that variety and scrolling through there. So I'm not a big fan of third-party apps or third-party delivery services because they take so much money to use them. But from a marketing standpoint, to get in front of a lot of people, it's tough. Domino's, even though they have their own drivers, they're on a lot of third-party delivery services, even though they use their own drivers because they want to get on their apps, because they want to get in that scrolling list of other restaurants because they feel like they miss being on there. So, there are some pluses and minuses of being in that marketing piece, but it's a lot of money to pay to get in that marketing piece. So we're not currently on there, but it's something that I think about a lot. But and then the outdoor dining piece as the weather changes, that's going to be tough. A lot of restaurants when they were able to their dining rooms reopened and they were able to get their landlords and the counties, which we didn't talk a lot about. The counties were very supportive, and I think Mayor Merkel talked about it. The counties were very supportive in helping businesses, independent restaurants, and all businesses get their zoning for their outdoor seating. That was very beneficial. But once the weather starts turning, we're not going to have that. But a lot of restaurants didn't really keep the momentum going for the takeout like I feel like they should have. And so a lot of people fell off that, and they didn't put the same intensity with that. And so come winter, a lot of people kind of forgotten about the takeout. And I really trained my staff or really manage my staff to make sure that we really had the same intensity when someone calls for takeout, that they got the same quality of food, because we've all gotten food from a takeout restaurant and it just wasn't the same quality. But when the cold weather hits and we can't go to our favorite restaurant because the patio seating is not available, are we going to hesitate to get their quality, their takeout food, because we don't think it's up to the same quality? That's a tough call. So I would challenge all restaurants to now start, working on the quality of their takeout food so that it's up to the same standard as they're dining inside in restaurant.
A couple other questions just came in. Alex, you mentioned co-tenancy. Have you seen good models in Arlington or other parts of the metro area that some of the developers in this area should follow?
Yeah, so I think that the challenge that many are going through right now is understanding some of the dynamics that have been discussed today, which is are the sort of walkable mixed-use, environments, all the trendy buzzwords that you know quite well, going to remain desirable going forward? Because it used to be that you could make a pretty easy pitch to a lot of retailers. We have a big anchor, then there can be a few junior anchors perhaps, and filled in with a lot of restaurants and salons, the small retail tenants all around it. Now it's the question of evaluating what sort of anchors are going to be the ones that are going to be attractive and make that sort of co-tenancy, kind of desirable and feel like an option. We are increasingly seeing, as I said, the value of grocery stores. I mean, that is going to be, I think the question is who's going to want to locate around something, a big draw like that will continue to be desirable for both car commuters, metro commuters. Should we ever have a viable subway system again as we get through COVID? So I'm not sure that there are a ton of great answers out there right now, but I think that the answer is going to continue to be, if, doubly so now that we all have to be at home more, what's a place that's going to be near, where you live, because that is now often the place that you work, and may well stay that way long into the future.
Here's another good question that came in. This covers a lot of panelists. Before COVID, there was a shortage of workers, particularly good quality ones, and people were having hiring challenges. What is everybody seeing now? Tony or Omar?
Well, from our perspective, it's kind of a cool place to work. So we never really had a lack of people interested in working here. I think what has happened, though, is because of COVID, we have less opportunity for people to work, just because there isn't as many hours or chances for them to work. So we've had people reach out. We just can't fill those positions because the staff that we have right now are already starving for as many hours as they can get. It's difficult to add in more people.
Yeah, I think in the hospitality business, before COVID, I could probably hire 5 to 7 employees per restaurant. I was probably always short 5 to 7 employees. Now we could probably hire 1 to 2 servers, but I think it's a lot of my friends that have other restaurants in the area. Hospitality is still a struggle to find employees. We thought after the July extension or the July subsidy of the federal unemployment $600 CARES package that we would start seeing some people come out and apply for jobs, and we didn't see that. So we're wondering now if people are scared to come and apply in the hospitality industry, that they're scared that maybe if there's a round 2 of closures for a second wave of COVID closures, that maybe people are scared that restaurants may get closed again, and that's why people aren't applying for hospitality jobs. But there's just not a lot of people applying for hospitality jobs now. My servers are still making $25 to $28 an hour in tips, so they're still making good money and waiting tables. So the money's there, but there's just not a lot of people applying for those jobs. And then the support staff, the bussers and the food runners and the hostesses that are traditionally go for the 16, 17, 18-year-old high school kind of entry-level positions. A lot of those, their parents just don't want them working right now because they're just concerned about getting sick, and they're just trying to concentrate on schoolwork, on their learning the virtual learning, concentrating on virtual learning right now.
Yeah, I can echo what Tony's saying with the fear factor as far as employment. We've had some past employees who just were not comfortable anymore working in any fashion. And they a lot of them actually held off until a month or so ago. So even when we had work available, some of them didn't want to come in. And to Tony's point as well, some of their parents didn't want them working, even if they wanted to. So we have seen that. I think it's becoming not as severe now, but initially that was definitely a fear by a lot of people.
Thank you, everyone. I think that's all the questions we have for now. We've hit our time. It's 5:17. Georgia?
Before we close out, I'd like to ask John to say a few words, and then I'll close out.
Sure.
Thanks, Georgia. I'm glad you didn't ask me to sing. So I'd like to thank all the panelists. It's obviously enlightening. We need to think about, the importance of retail, what that means, what it could look like along the Silver Line as we develop it. It's up to us. This isn't a matter of waiting for people to get lucky or see what happens. We can drive this, and we need to make this successful as it stands up. But more importantly, today, we wanted to thank Mayor Merkel. Thank you so much for all your service. I'm sure there'll be a number of other times we'll get a chance to say thank you. The parade may have to wait till later with the high school bands, but that's coming at some point. But it was an honor to present you with the award, and not only the folks here today, but all the chamber thanks you for all your help and support. Thank you. Georgia?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Merkel. We're very honored to have the privilege to work with you, and thank you for the tireless efforts and all the years you've given to not only the town of Herndon, but to the community and the region. We're very, very grateful. I'd like to thank our committee members, thank our speakers, and one more time our sponsors, Eldon Street Financial, Main Street Bank, Northwestern Federal Credit Union, Thompson, Greenspond, and our media coverage sponsor, Fairfax Public Access, Channel 10, and Jerry Ferguson. And that's it. Thank you all for being here in Metro
Thank
Monday
you.
next month. Be there. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Lilian Ciesa. I have my two kids, my two girls. I was married. Everybody dream with have a perfectly married, but unfortunately, things happen. The father of my kids, he left me with my two girls when my little one was 9 months. So it was very tough. And that is when I started to have all the challenging things in my life. I think I didn't believe in myself in the moment. I didn't trust in myself that I will be able to do it. Bright Path is a big help for the families like me. After they know about all my situation, they make an appointment and I went to their office. And that is when they start to help me, first of all, with emergency food. Then we start to talking about my financial situation. When I met Claudia, my financial mentor, she make an Excel spreadsheet with all my bills, and then we will review at the end of the month. I tell you the truth, I didn't realize how important was that because, this is the only way I can see how I will survive every month with the amount that I bring to my house. And sometimes she was very tough with me, and I say thank you to her because that is how she teach me. Then I went to 3 workshops and Bright Paths. I went to the healthy eatings that helped me how, to make correct food, healthy food for my kids. I went to another important workshop I really like it about how to deal with the stress. Then the other workshop was about my resume. That was the first one because I did have a resume but was very old. And Sally helped me. She helped me, to make a new one. That is how they helped me in many, many things, Bright Path. I can say now that I believe now in myself. I know I can do it. I didn't imagine that I will remarry. I think, everything happened for a reason. I met my husband in one of the tough times in my life. Now my family is growing. Now we are 7. My husband has 3 kids too. Sometimes I am emotionally when I remember what's going with me in the past. But I think I made it. And I made it thanks to Bright Path. As a single mom that I was in the moment, I don't know what it will do without Bright Path's help. I hope all the companies, organizations, or everybody still donated because you don't imagine how much they helped me to survive. Thank you for everything that Bright Path and each person of the company did for myself and for my girls. Thank you.
Social workers are vital in helping people through difficult times. But when life gets rough for them, who can they turn to?
I work for Fairfax County, Department of Family Services, and I am a benefits specialist 3. So I'm kind of a senior worker now. I've been with the county, today is the 25th, I've been with the county 13 years yesterday. I have 2 masters from Strayer University, and I have an MBA with a concentration in management, and then I have Master of Science in Human Resource Management with a concentration in organizational and human resource development. Last year, July, August of last year, I ran into a financial situation where I knew Chanel and I were going to be homeless. And I tried to prevent that by calling certain places, calling different agencies. Because we weren't evicted, there was nothing that anybody could do at the time. There were definitely doors that were shut, but I kept going because I know about the income piece of it, and because I make too much gross wise, a lot of those doors were shut for me because they did not consider me to be in poverty because I had this type of income that was coming in. Yes, I was homeless. And I had a job, and I have clients who are homeless and who don't have a job and don't make the money that I make. It started with the cleaning supplies. When you first get your place, when you don't have anything. Then the conversation of being able to start budgeting again. It's not like I don't know my finances. It's just being able to sit down with someone that's willing to say, okay, let's go through this together, and you're not alone, and this is what we need to pay for, these are the things that you need. One of the biggest things that just happened to us is we have a new car. So I made the phone call in May to my caseworker and explained to her that the vehicle that I had at the time was breaking down. So she contacted Lee at Oarsman, and we made the appointment to go over. She went with me because I didn't know what to expect. I hadn't had a car payment in over 10 years, and I really didn't want one, but I needed to be able to, if I was going to have a car payment, it needed to be reasonable for me and what I can actually afford. And the day that we went there, we had no idea that we were going to walk out with a car. And my daughter kept saying, no, I think we're going to have a car. I think you're leaving with a new car. And I was like, no, I'm not leaving. We're just talking. We're just talking, you know? And the next thing I know, they used the truck as part of the down payment. And I left out of there with a mint green Ford Fiesta named Bianca Cookie Jones, compliments to my daughter that day, and was able to come back the following week with the rest of the balance. And it was an amazing feeling to purchase something without having to have a co-signer, being able to work with someone that can look at your finances and say, okay, this is how we can split things up. I give back because somebody gave to us. I feel like everything has become full circle between my experiences, between my time at my job, between what I'm doing in the community. Even when my daughter graduates high school next year and goes off, she's seen what her single parent mother has been able to do and stand strong against the winds and the waves. And you know, here we are now, and we're still breathing, and we haven't fallen off that cliff of, you know, it definitely could have went in a different direction. I just stayed positive, and I kept saying, I knew in my heart I was going to find something. And Good Shepherd Housing came through.
My father just wasn't as sharp as he used to be. He seemed not to be part of our conversations. He was more forgetful. He seemed sometimes disoriented. He was repetitive. So was it depression? Was it normal aging? Was it hearing loss? Was it everything?
We see people from, you know, young adulthood all the way into their 90s
But we do see a lot of people who are worried about their memory and are starting to experience some memory problems. So they come to us so that we can help clarify whether this is just normal aging or a little bit of stress, or is it something more serious and something that needs some treatment.
And months later, things weren't any different. In fact, they were worse. We were seeing those behaviors more frequently. So my mother called the doctor, and the family doctor had a discussion with them, and the word dementia came up.
Yeah, that's a tough time when you're trying to figure out what's going on and feeling very alone. And it's been really good for me to be able to have the Insight Memory Care Center as a place to refer people for that kind of support. It's a very comprehensive program, I've thought, that can provide the education and make people feel less alone, and then the people to interact with, to talk to, and then also all the resources you have for the professionals that they might need in their lives at that particular time.
And we went online and looked at the whole website, and we found your educational classes, and the one that popped up was the first class that was happening in the beginning of this year, and it was, is forgetfulness a problem? So we read the description, and the first thing it said, is it normal aging or is it dementia? So we continued to read, and then it talked about the differences of the different forms of dementia, and then it was also going to talk about when you need to get help.
What we always try to do is start from the beginning. As we have new caregivers hearing about Insight, we want to make sure that we are starting with that initial diagnosis, carrying them all the way through.
So my sister and I registered. We went to the class. It was excellent. It was in layman's terms. We were with other people who were at the same phase we were. And we walked out, we called our mom back in Pennsylvania and said, you need to schedule an appointment with a neurologist.
I would hope for people that they could find Insight early in the process, as early as possible, and then have that support all the way through.
But if it wasn't for here, I think we'd still be wondering what was the next step we needed to do once we received the diagnosis.
And our education classes are free for the public. You don't have to be enrolled in Insight to be able to attend one of the classes. You can attend all the classes, and some caregivers do. They just want that knowledge.
The educational programs are so helpful. They serve so many needs, not just in terms of providing like the latest cutting edge research or, you know, professionals in the field getting the opportunity to share their knowledge with people that it really affects. But it also just gets people together and gets them talking and asking questions, and so they feel more part of a community that's there for them, and it's just an amazing resource.
They have a community of people that they can turn to who are going through the same thing, that can really understand what they're going through.
Learn as much as you can. Become friends with the people who come here on a monthly basis. They do become your support group as well. We laugh, we cry, we talk about our wins and our losses, but most of all, we all comfort each other. But finding a place like Insight is the #1 thing you need to do.